Part 131. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1302. The dog they were holding yelled crazily at Lily. She turned her head and stared at the dog. The dog, which had been fierce before, was startled. Suddenly, its tail was tucked between her legs. Lily hadn't even attacked the dog yet. The dog whined, and no one could hold the rope on it anymore after the accident happened to the two people. It actually turned around and ran away crazily. At this time, other people had gotten the news and rushed here. Lily gave up her plan to kill the dog, picked up all the guns and bullets on the ground, and quickly disappeared into the night. The siren started screaming crazily as she approached, and the camera captured her figure. The alarm here was so complete, but despite the vigilance of so many people, the guard was still killed by Lily. This is undoubtedly for the island. A thick shadow cast over the guard's heart. But this was actually just the beginning. In the next 3 or 4 hours, Lily used the same method to kill 3 nearby positions one after another. She only picked these 3 places to start, and never touched other places. Every time she started with assassination, after choosing a place, Lily would make detailed plans. She knew that after suffering a loss in the first position, there must be a sniper hiding. She was nearby, so every time she went to a place, she started to use stones to form a formation, using the 5-shaped Bagua method to make it impossible for snipers to determine her location. The deception method used after the 5 elements Bagua array was set up could hide it from the human eye, but not from the nose of a dog. When she ran away yesterday, a dog was chasing her. This trick was of no use, but when used here, it could not be better. At first Lily killed people with the stolen gun. Even though the sniper in the distance had already laid an ambush, she was still in the eyes of the sniper. Her movements were weird, and she used some method to quickly avoid people's sight. She was still within the attack range of a sniper the moment before. The next moment, he turned around and disappeared in a strange way, making it difficult for people to guard against him. When he appeared again, someone would always be shot and die. Although she did this, the people on the island had already guessed that she might be using a strategy to lure the tiger away from the mountain. But she was hiding and these people were hiding, but there was nothing they could do about her. Before the sky got slightly brighter, a group of people were already exhausted from the torment. These people have not had a good rest for a long time. From the time Lily and others escaped from the secret room to now, Lily can still use the star training technique to restore physical strength and spiritual power to hold on, but these people do not dare to relax for a moment. By now, everyone is exhausted. It was almost dawn, and the Lily caused a lot of noise on the island until the group of people were exhausted. At this time, she was also preparing to hide again. She went back to check the hiding place yesterday. These people had been extremely vigilant all night. After discovering her appearance, they had used dense power grids to seal all the main entrances into the mountain forest. There were guards everywhere on the island. After thinking about it, she suddenly remembered the iron cage where she was first imprisoned. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. These people guessed that she would hide around, but they would definitely not guess that she would return to this place for a while. Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help but ran towards the secret room from which she first escaped. There were people guarding the road, but once she entered the parking lot where she had robbed the car before, the bodies of the 2 guards here had been dealt with, and there were still people around. Seeing the blood splattering, it was obvious that the group of people who first escaped with her were caught here. It had only been 2 nights, and at that time the place was filled with all kinds of luxury cars. At this time, this place seemed extremely desolate. This is because the guests have already left. There are not enough guards on the island, so as Lily guessed, only one person can guard this place. At this moment, the people on the island were already frightened, and she did not make any noise to lure this person out. Instead, he waited patiently until the person went to the toilet and was in the blind spot of the monitor. Then he quietly followed him, killed him, took off his clothes, put them on himself, and took off his dirty vest and threw it away. In order to protect her, the people on the island had put on bulletproof vests and other full armor, and also wore helmets on their heads. She lowered her head to prevent her face from being photographed by the monitor above her head. In order to prevent her height from being captured by the monitor. Someone noticed something was wrong. When she passed the distance of the camera, she was standing on tiptoes. While everyone on the island was being upset by her, she arrogantly hid at the exit of the secret room where people were killed and rested for a day. There was water and food here, and because everyone was busy looking at other places, they ignored her corner. During the day, several helicopters came to the island and flew around the island several times, obviously trying to find out her whereabouts. However, no trace of her was found in the forest, and people on the island were already panicking. At this time, in the headquarters of King on the island, the remaining hunters asked King to prepare transportation for them to leave the island. Although the young man sitting in the wheelchair had a smile on his face, his eyes were terrifyingly cold. This group of excited and fearful people asked him to hurry up and prepare the transportation. They had a look of panic on their faces, which was really ridiculous. These people are obviously so cruel when killing, and they have long been accustomed to taking the lives of others, but when it is their turn, these people are always so afraid of death. Human nature is really a cute little thing. Although King was listening attentively to the excited roars of these people, his thoughts were gradually flying away. In his heart, he was sighing at the wonder of human nature and was intoxicated with his new discoveries. He had already no more talking. But the excited crowd didn't seem to notice this. These people were top figures from all walks of life in the world. They came here for entertainment, not to die. Now King's empire is obviously almost over. He is a disabled person, so he can forget about it if he dies, but people like him have money and power and don't want to die here with him. I request that a yacht be dispatched immediately, or that I tell you the location of the beacon. My own people will come to pick me up, a pale man said forcefully to King. He was wearing a straight suit and looked handsome. He looked like a dog, but the way this man tortured and killed people was extremely cruel. King stared at him with interest, curled his lips, and looked at him, but the focus did not fall on him, as if it was like I remembered something interesting through this man. The man was in extreme panic, so he didn't notice anything strange about King, but the middle-aged man who looked like a butler behind King did. He glanced at the young man without any trace. The young man was obviously distracted again. Then a happy smile appeared on his face. But the more the young man smiles so happily, the more scary he becomes. He shouldn't interrupt King's trance, but if he keeps being distracted by the scene in front of him, sooner or later these people will be dissatisfied. The middle-aged man couldn't help but move the wheelchair. He knew that the young man was very sensitive. Sure enough, as soon as he moved, the man in front of him didn't even notice the strangeness. However, the young man tensed up his body vigilantly and quickly held his hands. The handle of the wheelchair. Why are you panicking? The yacht will come. I have already given instructions to leave in 2 batches. Can you go first for the first batch of Mr. William? The young man asked gently. When the people who were named to leave first heard this, they were so excited that they almost cried. The young man narrowed his eyes and smiled happily. These people were also worried about what would happen if the news here spread out. To cause trouble, King promised that after this incident, everyone would evacuate and blow up the island. No trace would be left by then. After hearing this answer, the guests who came were still a little unbelievable at first. Until King expressed that, just in case, when he bought the island and built it, explosives had been buried in the ground. Many people were shocked, and while calling him crazy in their hearts, their faces could not help but look relieved. Tone of smile. Although it is now known that the island is so dangerous and that everyone has almost lived side by side with the god of death, fortunately the explosives did not detonate and they will leave the island as late as tomorrow. Therefore, although some people doubt that King has a sinister plot, but this was not the time to anger him, so everyone stopped talking. The man who was satisfied after getting these answers was sent away. His face, which was smiling as warm as the sun, immediately turned gloomy, and a crazy look flashed in his eyes. "Leave." He sneered twice, with ferocious murderous intent in his eyes. He curled his lips, and the room became quiet again. In the night, the two yachts docked again. Many people felt that the island was dangerous and were eager to leave. However, King reassured everyone not to be anxious. This batch of yachts had left and new yachts would be coming soon. This was for everyone's sake and to prevent anyone from getting into trouble. He spoke with assurance, and today he said he wanted to send people away, and sure enough, a yacht came over in the evening. When he spoke again, many people chose to believe it, so they retreated to a safe area and began to wait patiently. At this time, Lily waited until nightfall and touched it out again. She stayed at her original guard post for a day. There was a certain monitoring system in the pavilion there, and she also discovered the general distribution map of the island. Naturally, she also received news from her superiors, to the effect that a group of guests had already arrived. After being sent away, the remaining people must guard all important crossings to prevent the prey from attacking and injuring the remaining guests. Everyone must be vigilant enough to send all the guests away before everyone can evacuate. It is estimated that after this incident, the people on the island have already made plans to abandon the island, and from the tone of these messages, Lily estimates that these people may have plans to destroy the island, which coincides with her thoughts. Combine. Second update. Asking for a monthly ticket. If everyone casts my 200 votes today, this story will be completed in the third update tomorrow. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1303. But at the same time, Lily also discovered that it was simply unrealistic for her to kill all the people on the island by herself. Today she saw the map of the distribution of sentries, posts, and other outlets on the island. There are thousands of them in total. If there were basically 2 people at each location, the total would be more than 2,000 people. The strength of this small island is too terrifying. These armed forces can already be called terrifying. She can't kill any of them. However, if King really plans to abandon the island and blow up the Alcatraz island, then she can move forward with this plan. As for the guests who escaped today, she has also considered it. She can first find the place where King lives. From the time when the bunny girl mentioned the name of Mr. Casual, Lily guessed that the people on the island had no regard for these guests. Some of the information should be clear. She did not believe that King did not have information about these people. After all, they had to do such a dangerous thing, and the customers involved in the transaction were extraordinary. Such transactions were shameful and should not be tolerated in the world. King established this. He is probably not a fool. He will definitely keep some clues in his hands so that he can escape later. Lily really has no way to eliminate all these people. Then she will just find a way to get these information and escape. Even if she can't kill these guests now, she can kill them slowly in the future. But there will definitely be fish that slip through the net that cannot be killed. She is currently just hoping that if she acts like this in desperation, the original owner will see that this task is really difficult and not let her fail to complete the task. From the points guarded on the distribution map and her behavior of escaping on the island in the past 2 days, Lily could probably deduce it. On the computer display, the place marked with the orange triangle icon should be the most heavily guarded, and it should also be the point where King lives. She didn't go here, so after nightfall, she planned to go to this place to check. If she was unlucky and still found the error, she would have to find a way to dodge again. But Lily was not very lucky this time. The place marked with the word danger was not King's residence, but the place where ammunition and equipment were loaded. There were not many people guarding it, but when they discovered Lily, these people did not dare to shoot easily. After all, once a shot was fired, if this place is detonated, maybe everyone will die here, and everyone will fall under the trap. Start using your fists. These guards had already known about Lily's existence, but this was the first time they had actually seen her. When they discovered that the woman who had disturbed the entire island in the past 2 days was not as fierce and strong as everyone imagined, these people were shocked. Startled. Although I knew from the information leaked from the mouths of the first to die among the escaped prey, I knew that this fish that slipped through the net was a woman, but I could really see the face of the person in front of me who was wearing the same security suit as myself and others. The delicate, slender, and graceful girl has been the feared prey for the past 2 days. Many people are still in disbelief. But soon after Lily punched, everyone knew that there was a reason why this woman could turn the island upside down. After discovering Lily, everyone here quickly threw away the guns and ammunition in their hands. One of them began to quickly notify the people nearby to come. Lily kicked a guard in front of him. There were 3 in total here. The men were all strong and tall. While the man was quickly announcing the news, the other man tilted his head. There is no place to be found after wearing iron shoes. Lily secretly cried out that she was unlucky when she discovered the house here. When I pushed the door open and walked in, I met these men. If I hadn't dodged quickly, I would have been punched to the ground. But even she dodged the punch and quickly forced one person back with a kick. But he was still surrounded by 3 people in a triangular position. The bulletproof suit he was wearing was too big, but now he didn't need bullets. It restricts her actions too much. These people had already informed others, and in order to avoid attracting more people, Lily decided to make a quick decision. She was too lazy to talk nonsense to these 3 people, so she took the lead and attacked, rushing towards the person who spoke first. He was the closest to her. Lily stretched out her hand to grab him, and the people on the other side had already attacked. These 3 people cooperated well, and Lily could test the approximate strength of these 3 people with one move. If she didn't get hurt and expose the 3 of them, I'm afraid it wouldn't be easy for her to deal with them in a short period of time when one of them was defending and 2 were attacking. Thinking of this, she simply opened her back wide and allowed a big man on her back to punch her waist. Under this heavy blow, severe pain came. With the strength of the big man, Lily quickly punched the big man in front of her. He rushed over, held down his head with one hand, and hit him hard on the face with the other hand. The big man who took action before had a happy face when he saw that she did not dodge. It can be seen that Lily did not fall down after receiving a punch from him. Instead, he rushed towards the other person. He was stunned for a moment, and was caught by Lily. The man reacted very quickly and lowered his head to avoid her punch in the face. He wore a hard helmet on his head. In the minds of a few people, although Lily had become famous in the past 2 days and had killed a lot of people, most of them were sneak attacks and assassinations. Although she was also capable, with this punch, the power of women itself, she is weaker than a man. In addition, she was hit by another big man before. The most important thing is that this man is wearing a helmet on his head. Even if he is hit by her, as long as he does not die and restrains her, I am afraid that the 3 of them will be killed this time. That's a great achievement. The man whose head was held down was not afraid of revolt when he thought of this, and grabbed Lily's waist with both hands. But the next moment, Lily's punch did not change the direction, and still hit his helmet, with a heavy blow. Then, there was just a click sound, the helmet received a heavy blow, and the left and right sides were forced to close together. At this time, the smile on the face of the man who grabbed Lily froze. In an instant, his head seemed to be hit by a huge boulder. The helmet deformed and clamped his head tightly. The gravity came through the helmet, and he only felt his brain seemed to be shattered by this punch. The power of this punch was not as he imagined, it just caused him some pain. He screamed, and the helmet deformed and clamped his head. His face was squeezed out of shape, and he screamed in pain. As soon as the hand holding Lily loosened, she instinctively hugged her head. The next moment Lily punched him on the head again. Her own fists were aching, not to mention the man's helmet stuck tightly on his head. He could no longer scream and fell to the ground holding his head instinctively. He was convulsing, and there was no trace of blood on the ground. It was obvious that this person was already dying. Once the triangle formation is broken, the remaining two people can be easily dealt with. Lily took advantage of the man being dealt with and grabbed another man who originally wanted to attack her. She took out a dagger from her waist, thrust it into his mouth and through the back of his head, and pushed him away. It took a few minutes to deal with the two guards. When the remaining one saw something was wrong, he turned around and ran away. This man ran very fast. Lily thought of the people who were already coming here, so she endured the pain and stopped chasing. He chose the opposite direction to that person and fled. She was injured, and her internal organs seemed to be knocked out of place by the blow. At this time, the guards were alerted, and most of the troops came running towards this direction again, coming out of the arms and ammunition depot. After running for a while, Lily looked back and suddenly recited a spell. The world is infinite. A small fire dragon appeared at her fingertips. Because the time for practicing the Tao Te Ching was too short, this thing might be useful for ghosts, zombies, etc., but if it was used to kill people, it would not only be useful for spirits. It consumes a lot of strength, and at most it can only hurt but not kill. But it was the perfect time to use it. The fire dragon grew longer and longer as she recited the spell, and the group of people chasing her were gradually approaching. Lily heard the sound coming from the arms and ammunition depot, and her eyes flashed. Narrow, the slender fire dragon in her hand was released by her. The group of people only saw a dragon-shaped fire appear out of thin air, roaring and rushing towards the ammunition depot. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered, and started running around like crazy. At this time, they only hated their parents. Two legs were born. During the turmoil, the fire dragon quickly got into the room marked with the word danger. There were ammunition and other dangerous objects inside. A spark was enough to start a prairie fire, not to mention that the things inside were not even touched by sparks. A loud bang was followed by explosions one after another. People who ran far away in time were blown away by the air wave generated by the explosion. Many people running behind were drowned by the fire. Lily he had already run far away, but at this moment he was involuntarily knocked away and fell to the ground so hard. The ground began to tremble slightly, as if there was an earthquake, and wails and screams came one after another. Many people did not understand until their death how the inexplicable fire dragon appeared. All the bones in Lily's body were almost shattered by the fall. She moved her fingers, but for a moment her body couldn't muster any strength and she couldn't get up at all. The exploded gunpowder magazine was ignited with a raging fire, and the heat wave seemed to be roasting people. Lily gritted her teeth, heard the noise not far away, and forced herself to get up. There had just been such a fuss here. There was a loud noise. The fire was so strong at this time, especially as the sea breeze blew, the fire began to spread quickly around. The ground trembled more violently, the temperature became hotter, and many people began to run towards the side. Although she was the one farther away from the arsenal just now, the explosion was so powerful that she was affected to some extent. One of her ribs was broken, and she was in excruciating pain when she moved. Lily gritted her teeth and reached out to touch her body. Fortunately, the broken bones had not hurt her vital parts. This was not a place to stay for a long time. Otherwise, once these people came, if she lay here motionless, she would be killed sooner or later. Caught. Third update. People say. In addition to her beauty and intelligence, the kind-hearted Mary Sue doesn't need to do anything else to have a dazzling aura. Today, I broke this curse. Oh my god, in addition to having a Mary Sue halo, I am also so hard-working. With the aura of genius, beauty, kindness, and hard work, why don't you have any reason not to vote for me? To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1304. Lily endured the pain and got up from the ground shivering. The island began to tremble slightly, and Lily took advantage of the chaos and ran around. Fortunately, she was still wearing the clothes of a mercenary on the island. What's more, she was not the only one escaping, so her stumbling figure did not attract anyone's attention. After running for hundreds of meters in one breath, Lily felt that her breath was already smelling fishy. She must have aggravated her injuries while running. She no longer knew what kind of place she had come to. There was a lot of noise behind her, and many people were trying to extinguish the fire. She raised her head and saw a small building in front of her. All the people guarding the surrounding areas had fled. Compared to the firelight hundreds of meters away, the surroundings of the small building were dim. There was an eerie silence. There were densely packed lights all around, and they were all turned on at this time, illuminating the surroundings like daylight. The exterior of the building is made of black spar patches, which reflect a terrifying luster under the light. Outside the building is a large open space, which is clean and tidy. There is no one guarding here. There are many monitors and alarms above the head, and the ground is also covered with thin high-voltage power grids. The defense here is better than before. The villa you entered was even more strict. Lily coughed twice, and the fishy smell in her throat became thicker. Every breath made her lungs hurt a little more. She gritted her teeth and saw that the square was surrounded by an electric iron fence, about 3 meters high. There is a monitor and alarm handover every 5 meters. In other words, the alarms are mixed with monitors, and the monitors are separated by alarms. Each one is about 5 meters apart. She only needs to choose a distance of 3 meters from an alarm. There is also a space of 2 meters away from the monitor. The monitor rotates 360 degrees, which means if she gets the timing right. If she climbed over the iron fence when the monitor turned away and didn't see her, it would be possible for her to avoid the monitor and alarm at the same time and enter the small building. At present, it seems that it is not difficult to avoid the monitors and alarms. On the contrary, how to avoid the dense electric grid on the ground and jump over the iron fence is a problem. She had not practiced martial arts for long, and now she was seriously injured. She could barely jump 3 meters. This iron fence is made of exquisite hollow flower shapes, with a leaf shape in the middle. There were lines about the width of a palm. Lily suddenly thought of something and took out the dagger from her waist. She roughly compared it and found that the length of the dagger was longer than the grid of the hollow iron fence. Thinking of this, she took off the large guard uniform jacket she was wearing, cut it into strips with a dagger, and tied them together, splicing them into a strong rope about 4 meters long. The middle of the dagger was firmly tied, and Lily tried to pull it. It was not particularly strong, but it was not difficult to support her weight. After coughing twice, she aimed the rope with the dagger in her hand at the middle of the iron fence and threw it. The dagger hit the fence with a crisp sound, but passed through the gap smoothly. Lily gently pulled the rope, and the dagger was firmly stuck in the hollow flower leaves. She coughed twice more before straightening the rope. She shook her hand hard, resisting the pain in her body, and took advantage of it. Turning the monitor to the other side, she grabbed the other end of the rope and jumped up. Using the middle rope as a fulcrum, she jumped up and used the rope to fly into the sky. just around the corner from the siren, and fell into the yard. After landing, the place where the broken bone was affected caused another sharp pain. She sat on the ground for several seconds before gritting her teeth and standing up. The door to the villa was not closed. Lily took a deep breath and entered the house. As soon as you enter the foyer, you are greeted by a world of pure white. Both the decoration and the furniture here are all in clean colors. A man in a wheelchair has his back to Lily. The wall in front of him is a large screen, which is full of dense surveillance pictures. Each picture is about the size of a palm. These small pictures form a huge painting, which makes people dizzy and makes people almost vomit after looking at it for a second time. At this time, the young man carrying Lily on his back stared at these pictures with relish, as if he was not aware of Lily's arrival. But when Lily discovered this screen, she guessed that he must have discovered his existence, so the door opened. It would be open, waiting for her to come in. The hairs all over her body stood up, and she instinctively felt that she was in danger. She didn't see anyone, but Lily instinctively avoided her body. There was a soft sound, and a hole the size of a peanut was shot out of the expensive imitation jade floor where she was standing. There was smoke coming out, and there were several cracks in the surrounding floor tiles. She looked in the direction where someone had just bloomed. At the railing of the spiral staircase, a middle-aged man was pointing a gun at her. Lily turned her head to avoid it, and with a porphy sound, the bullet grazed her shoulder, spattering a small piece of blood. She held back the pain and ran towards the stairs to the second floor. The man upstairs seemed to be trying to stop her from going upstairs. The bullets chased her footsteps. A stray bullet bounced off the ground and shot into her calf. She staggered. The rope Lily had made before shook and she shot towards the balcony. The railing was thrown over, and the rope circled around the railing. The dagger got stuck in the rope and slid down. She shook the rope and jumped up. The middle-aged man had a look of panic on his face. Before he could react, Lily held the rope was already tied around his neck, causing him to sway and fall down. The original direction of shooting changed from pointing towards Lily to pointing downwards, and the bullet clicked with a bang sound. The shot hit the flower pot placed behind, and the flower pot cracked with a clang. The middle-aged man's neck was strangled by the rope, and he instinctively wanted to grab the rope, but Lily had endured the pain and shook her hand. The middle-aged man's body was driven by the rope, and he flew up and fell off the balcony. Outside, there was a rope around his neck, and when he fell out, Lily, who had grabbed the rope, was also pulled towards the balcony. Lily grabbed the railing with one hand, suppressed a cough, gritted her teeth and endured the pain, and tied the rope to the balcony while trembling. When the man did this, he was hung in the air. After struggling desperately, the gun in his hand fell to the ground with a bang. After Lily had done all this, she grabbed the railing and started to breathe. She felt as if there was something in her nostrils. There were blood drops dripping out, and the young man in the wheelchair below turned around, holding a gun in one hand and pointing it at Lily, and holding the control panel in the other hand, but he insisted on making a gesture of applauding. Amazing. The man who was hung in the air was still struggling desperately, his face was blue from holding back, his legs were kicking wildly, and his eyes were about to bulge out of their sockets. However, the more he struggled, the tighter the rope around his neck became. He stretched out his hand to grasp the rope above his head and climb up, but every time he grabbed hold, Lily would swing the rope twice, and he soon turned purple and gave up. "Good evening, girl." The man in the wheelchair seemed to be in a very happy mood, with a bright smile on his face. However, the gun he aimed at Lily had already pulled the safety, and his finger was on the trigger without moving away. "Even Tang fell into your hands. No wonder those losers can't catch you." The young man didn't look very old. He covered his legs with a blanket. Lily lowered her head and stared at his. Looking at his legs, the young man's face quickly turned gloomy. One moment he was still smiling, and the next moment his eyes were so gloomy that they could drip water. Yao Bei was brought to the island by a person named Zhang. He is 18 years old. His parents. The young man read out the original owner's information casually, and after a while, he curled his lips. If I were you, I would just suggest that you stop staring at my legs. That is obviously very impolite behavior. After he finished speaking, he narrowed his eyes and hooked his finger on the trigger harder. Although the gun was pointed at her, Lily coughed twice, and after the pain in her chest subsided, she looked at the young man and said, "Your legs can't stand up." Although the legs were firmly covered by the thick blanket, leaving no gaps, Lily could see that the position of the young man's legs did not show any shape at all, which meant that the young man was sitting in a wheelchair. It wasn't that he was being pretentious or injured, either he had no legs at all in his lower body, or his legs were atrophied for some reason, but no matter which way he couldn't stand up. After hearing this, the young man seemed to be irritated and immediately pulled the trigger. When the bullet came with a bang sound, Lily had already seen from the young man's narrowed pupils that he was going to attack even before he finished speaking, and turned sideways to avoid it. The bullet hit the wall behind her, making a clang sound. Although she was not hit by the bullet this time, the wound on Lily's leg was torn because of the twist she just made. Blood flowed down her leg pants, soaking the pants and sticking them tightly to her calf. Moist and sticky. If you can't kill me with one shot, and you can't stand up, you will be the one who dies. Just now Lily said that he couldn't stand up, and the young man fired in anger. Obviously this leg should be his inverse scale, but Lily didn't stop irritating him because she knew there was something wrong with his leg. Instead, she started irritating him again. One sentence. She was mentally calculating how many bullets there were in the gun in the young man's hand. In her current state, most of her physical strength has been consumed, she is injured, and there is not much spiritual power left in her body. She must fight quickly. Taking advantage of the opportunity to speak at this moment, Lily took a few breaths secretly, trying to delay as much time as possible to accumulate strength. After saying what she just said, Lily was already prepared that the man would shoot at her again, but for some reason, her whole body tensed up and prepared to dodge, but the man grinned and actually put the gun in his hand. On his lap. I locked up 8,000 words in a small dark room last night, and I didn't come out until now today. It feels like I've been in jail for a day, it's such a long time, I beg for a warm caress. This story ends today, and Xiao Li's story officially begins tomorrow. So, I solemnly ask for votes. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1305. Although the muzzle of the gun was still pointed in Lily's direction, it was not raised again, which obviously showed his attitude. The man who had a sullen face before laughed like a lunatic but gently, "You are right." He nodded with a slightly happy expression, as if he had remembered something interesting. "You are right, this will not do any good to the two of us. First, let me introduce myself. My name is King. I think, we can try to coexist peacefully for now." When Lily heard this, she was stunned for a moment, and then she also grinned. She didn't expect that she would be able to get there without any effort. If the young man didn't introduce himself, she would probably think that he was a special guest, instead of comparing him to what Mr. Casualty said. "Contact the owner of this island, King." The young man looked young and had a gentle temperament. It was true that people should not be judged by their appearance. She really did not expect that the owner of this Alcatraz island would be such a young man. "I have admired my name for a long time." Lily smiled on the surface, but she had murderous intentions in her heart. This king did many evil things, and the Alcatraz island he created was full of murderers. She could not let go of this scourge today. The young man sitting in the wheelchair curled his lips after hearing her words. "You are very powerful and calm, why are you not afraid?" After saying that, he pointed at Lily. "Look, you have so many injuries on your body." She didn't look good. She had been hiding for several days without sleep. In addition, when she was captured before, she was in hiding. After staying in the iron cage for a while, she looked extremely miserable, but the look on her face and eyes was very calm. No panic at all. Mr. Nagashima wants to talk to you. Lily remained silent, but suddenly the communicator in front of the young man rang, and a mechanical female voice prompted, Mr. Nagashima wants to talk to you. When the young man heard this, he couldn't help laughing. He didn't reach out to pick up the communicator. Instead, he laughed so hard that he almost couldn't hold the remote control in his hand, as if he thought of something interesting. Lily guessed that if she rushed forward and took action at this time, she would have a slight chance of winning. But the gun in his hand was raised again because of Lily's slight shaking. He finally held the remote control firmly and pressed it twice. The countless small grids on the big screen in front of him suddenly turned into one huge picture. A luxurious hall appeared inside. In the hall, a man wearing a shirt held a communicator in his hand and was anxiously trying to notify this place. Across the screen, Lily could clearly see the anxious look on the middle-aged man's face. He seemed to be very anxious and was walking around on the ground. The beads of sweat on his forehead were clearly visible. It seemed that because of the young man's behavior of not answering the communicator for a long time, he cursed twice, but the screen was quiet. The young man laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. Sorry. I forgot to turn on the sound, so you didn't appreciate it. To all this, after he finished speaking, he pressed the remote control twice more, and the urgent curse of Mr. Nagashima was mixed with the sound of the arsenal that had been blown up by Lily on the island. The fire seemed to be getting bigger and bigger at this time, and this Mr. Nagashima was also very anxious, and all kinds of swear words came out of his mouth. Ha 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 ha. The young man's unbridled laughter sounded in the room. After laughing for a while, he seemed to find something wrong and turned around. Staring at Lily with some confusion, why don't you laugh? Isn't it funny? What's so funny? Lily suddenly felt that this young man might have a mental problem. His expression was so excited that something was wrong. There was an accident on the island. It's normal that he wanted to contact you to know the situation, but he couldn't. Is it normal? The young man asked back, and then realized, oh. You don't know that explosives are buried everywhere on the island. He seemed to have remembered something, and pushed the wheelchair with his hands. He began to move towards the door. Did you know? The island is full of explosives. He is so panicked because there is a fire now. It is very likely that the explosives will detonate, causing them and the island to be shattered to pieces. After he finished speaking, he showed his white teeth, so he wants to know when he can leave the island. He can't wait, you know? Ha 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 ha, isn't it funny? The ugliness of people before death is always so cute. No matter it's those ants or these people, power and wealth can't change these tunes. The young man frowned, with a look of disgust on his face, and laughed like a lunatic. Then he cursed crazily, it's so disgusting, dirty, but so fun. Lily stared at him coldly, and the young man laughed to himself for a while, then raised his head in confusion, with a puzzled expression. What's wrong? Isn't it fun? Why don't you laugh? Oh no, you should be afraid. Look, this place is about to be reduced to nothing. When the explosives are detonated, there will be a bang sound. He suddenly raised his hands, and the entire island and the people on the island will be destroyed. It will turn into nothing, and the body will be blown into countless fine powders, splashing like fireworks. He closed his eyes, as if recollecting something. It's really beautiful. Do you know how the corpse will be broken into pieces? The young man opened his eyes again, and his eyes were full of brilliance. It's like putting a person into a meat grinder and the meat that comes out will look like it failed. Have you ever seen what it looks like when a person is forced into a meat grinder? The young man asked Lily with his eyes widened. He suddenly seemed to remember something again, and there was a haze in his eyes, but he was soon replaced by his smile. This layer of haze dispersed. Oh, you probably haven't seen it, you are the one who was killed. It's very beautiful. I suggest you take a look, that bright red color, that smell. As he spoke, he burst into tears and gnashed his teeth and cursed, "Damn you bitch, I want to do it with my own hands." "You push in, stop, don't make any more noise," he covered his ears and yelled at the top of his lungs, with a crazy expression. Lily moved, and suddenly his hand shook, and the muzzle of the gun pointed at the side with a bang. "Shoot, I told you to stop." He shouted loudly, his expression was like a ghost, his eyes were red and bloodshot, and his eyes were fierce. "Ha ha ha ha, I'm sorry, I thought of some past events and scared you." The bullet passed by Lily's feet and got stuck in the floor tiles. She frowned, and the young man casually stretched out his hand to straighten his hair. "Now, this island is going to explode. Are you willing to live in peace with me for the time being?" "Peace?" Lily asked back, and the young man laughed happily and nodded, "Yes, peaceful coexistence." When the word peace came out of his mouth, it was like a big joke. Lily suppressed her smile. How to coexist peacefully? "Now the island is about to explode." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a muffled sound in the distance, and the entire island shook due to the muffled sound, including the small building here. Lily held onto the railing tightly to steady herself. The young man's eyes widened, and he tried his best to grasp the armrest of the wheelchair. "Listen quickly. It's going to explode, and the island is going to sink. I have contacted the helicopter. Now, in order not to delay our departure from each other, we will coexist peacefully for the time being until we get on the plane and leave." The young man spoke quickly, and through the huge screen, Nagashima Mr. is still making calls, and the communicator on the young man's desk is still desperately prompting, "Mr. Nagashima wants to talk to you." Through the floor-to-ceiling glass window behind Mr. Nagashima, Lily could see the light of the sky and the faint sound of explosions. There seemed to be something rumbling underground, and the ground was shaking slightly. Soon the screen returned to the previous small grid state, but this time the young man did not turn off the sound. The sounds of running and desperate shouts rang out. These small grids completely conveyed the despair and fear of everyone on the island. Conveyed. The young man glanced at it and turned his head away casually, "But before that, the helicopter that picks me up will be here in 2 minutes. "Oh no, it's only 1 minute and 30 seconds. It will arrive here by then. You can escape the pursuit of the guards on the island." "I don't want to waste my time fighting with you." The young man wants to escape from the island. He has a gun in his hand, but if Lily cannot be killed with the first shot, it is very likely that Lily will entangle it. Now the island is about to explode. If he is entangled and unable to get on the helicopter for a while, both of them may die here. So I have a tentative peace agreement with you. If you agree, we can get on a helicopter and leave here together." He wanted to leave here. Lily's eyes narrowed. "You want to throw all these people on the island?" Her words were affirmative and not doubtful. The young man spread his hands. "There is no way, there are too many people, we can't leave." This man was cruel and ruthless, and he threw away thousands of people on the island. Lily felt cold in her heart and tried to get down from upstairs, but among these people, the identities of the guests are not ordinary. So many people died. Aren't you afraid that after you escape, someone will cause trouble for you in the future? No, no, no. The young man tilted his head and smiled. He looked at the time again, with a look of anxiety on his face. "Don't move any more. The bullet in my hand may break accidentally before we agree." "Your lovely head." He took a deep breath and gritted his teeth as if he was suppressing some addiction. "I can do this, so I'm naturally prepared." After he finished speaking, Lily didn't listen to his prompts and still came down. With a sinister look in his eyes, "I have clips of everyone here killing people. It's not me who should be worried at that time, but these guests. Second update, please give me monthly votes. It's still the same old rule. If you get 200 votes today, there will be 3 updates tomorrow. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1306. King bought this island and was naturally prepared for such a business. Otherwise, when these big guys wanted to kill people and silence them, he would not be able to bear it no matter how powerful he was. When Lily heard this, her heart moved. Where did you put it? When the young man heard this, he became a little impatient. There is less than a minute left, why are you talking so much nonsense? Where is it? Lily asked sharply again and rushed towards the young man. The young man's legs were indeed inconvenient. When he saw Lily's action, he was startled. He pointed the gun in his hand at her and fired again. The shot hit Lily's shoulder, but she still threw herself at the young man. Seeing her unafraid of death, the young man was startled and pushed his wheelchair to escape. Are you going to die? I asked you, where are these videos? Lily was really dying at this time. The young man on the island had buried a lot of explosives. Now, without her doing it, the island might explode by itself, and every guest and guard here would die. Everyone who goes out also has a handle in the hands of this young man. If she can get these handles, the mission will be almost completed. I hide a secret place. If I die, these videos will be released to the public. So no one dares to attack me. Do you understand? Can you leave now? The young man spoke quickly as if he was being driven crazy. The door was open, and the sound of helicopters could be heard outside. The explosives buried under the island had been detonated. The sound of rumbling was coming continuously, and the ground was shaking. The sound of explosions came from far and near. If you die, will the film be released to the public? Lily asked softly, and the tense string in her heart suddenly relaxed. If the young man really has something to do with these people, it will be announced to the public as soon as he dies. The remaining guests on the island will die, and the escaped guests will eventually be unable to escape legal sanctions due to the leakage of the film. In other words, as long as Lily kills the king in front of her, she will have completed her mission. I just need to kill you. Will this Alcatraz island never exist? Once King died, the video was circulated, and the behavior of the guests would shock the world. No matter how powerful these people are, no matter how important their status is, nobility can never be escaped. She didn't have to do it herself, even if she died on this island at this moment. But this mission should be considered completed. After all, the original owner's wish was only to escape, but not to live well after escaping. If she died here, the original owner's parents would not be affected, and Yao Bei would be satisfied. Thinking of this, Lily suddenly rushed towards the young man. King didn't expect that she would make such a move and was shocked. The gun in her hand began to hit her randomly. Lily didn't care about her own life at this time. As long as she kept King in this place, as long as she held him back for 1 minute, the man would not be able to escape and would die in this place. The island of Sin was shattered into pieces together with Alcatraz Island. The bombs have spread this way, the helicopter has arrived overhead, and someone is yelling desperately from outside, obviously asking King to get out. He was hit by bullets in 2 places on his body. It hurts terribly. But at this time Lily still held back the pain and rushed towards King. The gun in the young man's hand was empty of bullets. He threw the empty gun away, with a look of fear on his face for the first time. He pushed the wheelchair with his hand and tried to escape. But he couldn't move faster than Lily, and Lily pounced on him. The huge momentum made him unable to steady his body. Lily bumped into him. He was knocked sideways in the direction he was about to escape towards the door. The sound of the wheelchair rolling was heard. The two were entangled and bumped to the side. There was a bang on the glass door. "Are you crazy?" King shouted in a panic. Lily's hand was squeezing him very tightly, as if she would not let go. He tried desperately to struggle and throw her away, The island is going to explode. If you don't let me go, you won't let me go either. Can't leave. He didn't believe that there were people who were not afraid of death, but as soon as he finished speaking, Lily, who had turned pale, suddenly laughed. We don't want to leave. People like King were not suitable to survive. One was a man with leg problems, and the other was seriously injured. Both struggled desperately, and the shouts of the people in the helicopter above became more and more urgent. The sound of the island exploding was getting closer and closer. With a loud bang, the house began to shake heavily. The sound of cracking walls came, and then an explosion sounded again. The wall it began to shake heavily again, and the lights overhead also began to crash and fall. The helicopter obviously did not dare to stay any longer. The island was becoming more and more dangerous. If it stayed, I am afraid that everyone on the plane would also be dead. The sound of the plane's propellers began to fade away, the overhead lamp fell heavily to the ground, and the middle-aged man's body hanging on the balcony swayed like a wind chime. A look of despair suddenly appeared on King's face. Damn it, I will die, he will die too. The ground shook even more violently. The two of them were panting. They were both at the end of their strength, but neither of them was willing to let go of the other. King raised his head. Now that he knew he was going to die, he quickly calmed down. You should be able to survive. The house was already clicking. It was obvious that the house was almost destroyed due to the violent vibration. He always believed that everything was under his control, but this was the first time he encountered such a situation that was beyond his control. King never imagined that Lily would be so desperate to keep him in this place. Although she had been injured before, those injuries themselves were not fatal. She could have chosen to survive if she had a chance, but the final choice was to let herself stay rather than die. This kind of behavior that harms others and does not benefit oneself made King extremely puzzled. He had given up the struggle. The two had struggled and pushed, and the wheelchair had been overturned. They hugged each other tightly and fell to the ground. King found that he had been there for many years. I have never been so embarrassed. He was breathing heavily and felt that the woman beside him was out of breath, but she was holding on to him tightly, and her determination to not let him escape from the island was obviously very strong. You can't survive, Lily gasped. After the silence, the explosions of the surrounding bombs became particularly intense. Lying on the ground, she could feel the sea water under the island boiling after being shocked. A rumbling sound came from the ground, getting closer and closer to the two of them. If she could be sacrificed in exchange for the death of all the demons on the island, then everything would be worth it. If she had a choice, she definitely didn't want to die in this place with the king, but she had no choice. Hearing this, King suddenly wanted to laugh. Just because she couldn't let him live, she took her life. Is this what is called eliminating harm for the people? How can there be such a great person in this world? At this critical moment, King suddenly laughed out loud, but soon the smile at the corner of his mouth turned bitter. I wonder if people always have random thoughts before they die. He suddenly remembered that many years ago, it was already a nightmare for him. The general existence haunts the memories of his life. In fact, he had not dared to think about it for many years, whenever he dreamed about it at midnight. What he fears most is remembering the past. Do you have a mother? King asked calmly, his hand holding Lily tightly, his body trembling slightly. This abominable demon that everyone on the island was afraid of, at this time, like every prey imprisoned in the iron cage, he was afraid of death. Showing fear and despair. Lily didn't want to talk to him. She felt that her physical strength was losing a lot. She was holding her breath before she was shot, but now she felt the pain once she relaxed. She didn't speak, and King didn't care. What he wanted was obviously not Lily's answer. The explosion was getting closer and closer, and the middle-aged man's body hanging above the two people was violently shaken, and fell to the ground with a dong sound. This short period of time before death was extremely difficult for King. He closed his eyes and waited for death to come. What came to mind was the scary little dark room, with a gloomy-looking woman sitting in front of him, smiling at him gently. Be good, mother's little slave in front of him was a terrifying meat grinder that was huge for him at a young age, and the woman placed him on it. After all these years, he was still scared when he thought about it. Lily felt that for a moment, his hand was holding her very tightly. She turned her head in surprise and saw a terrifying blue-black color on King's face. His face was slightly distorted, as if he had thought of something. As if something very terrible had happened, there was a look of despair and panic on his face. His power was so great that Lily felt a little pain. You know what? I hate being a little slave and being manipulated by others, so he wanted to be a king. His mother resented his father and stuffed him into a child when he was young. The heart-rending pain in the meat grinder was still extremely painful when he thought about it now. Although he did not die in the end, one of his legs was crippled. This was the reason why he resented people talking about his legs the most. His experiences as a child made him have a strange resentment towards human beings. He was abused by others, but he inflicted his pain on others. He liked to see people showing fear, and he liked to be the aloof king. When he grew up, he stuffed his mother into the machine he had been in when he was a child in the same way. The difference was that he was taken out in the end. And his mother turned into plasma. After that, he went on a killing spree while building this Devil's Island, but he didn't expect that he would eventually die on the island he created. The ground was detonated, and when the two of them were blown up by the air wave, Lily vaguely saw that when King flew out, only the roots of his lower body legs were left. Then her thoughts fell into darkness. The entire island was torn apart. With a violent sound, the island was decomposed by a large amount of explosives and slowly sank into the seabed. The evil here was buried along with the island. 3 days later, an automatic program was sent to the internet in every country in the world. Some famous people from all over the world appeared on it. Naturally, there were also many bloody situations. Everyone in the world saw the prey killed by despair in those dark chambers. The cruel and terrifying methods made the whole world boil. These dead faces are consistent with the cases that have been reported missing over the years. In other words, these materials are not movies, but things that really happened. People in every corner of the world were shocked and outraged by what they saw and heard, and the news tracked the story. In Yao's house, Yao Beihi's parents didn't realize that their daughter had disappeared until they watched TV. Yao Beihi's name was among the list of victims that appeared on the island. For the first time, the couple was panicked and extremely painful for their daughter. On the TV news, figures from all over the world who used to be famous in the past are now in an extremely embarrassed state, and have been arrested one after another. When many people were arrested, they loudly cursed a man named King. What awaited these executioners would be the most severe punishment. This story is over. Spread the flowers. Asking for votes, professional and cute, asking for votes. If you are too soft, you can't ask for them. I will come with a softer one. Please vote. If it reaches 200 today, there will be 3 updates tomorrow. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1307. The pain of dying in the explosion seemed to still remain on her body, and she felt uncomfortable. When Lily was knocked away, her soul did not return to the starry sky. Li Yangzi appeared out of thin air and intercepted her soul that was supposed to return to the starry sky. Down. The surrounding islands that had exploded gradually disappeared, and the surrounding scenery was distorted, and finally turned into a dazzling star, which he held in his hand. Lily fell asleep in his arms. Affected by the explosion during the previous mission, she did not wake up at this time. Maybe it was just as well that she didn't wake up, so she didn't have to bear the pain of separation. Li Yangzi lowered her head, with a bit of reluctance in her eyes. After she left, she didn't know if there would be another chance for the two of them to see each other again. He was silent and hugged Lily tighter. He had no choice but to send Lily back. In addition to solving the situation where he was being backlashed by Chi Ching, in fact, he had another wish. I just hope she won't cry when she finds out she's been sent back. Li Yangzi pursed his lips, and the stars that had been gathered in his hand burst out with a large amount of light. The light enveloped his figure, and the power of the stars began to gather into Lily's body, and finally disappeared into her body together with Li Yangzi. She seemed to be carried far away by the aftereffects of the explosion, and she didn't know how long it had passed. She was awakened by the impact and pain when she fell to the ground. Lily opened her eyes. She seemed to have been in the dark for a long time. She was still a little uncomfortable with the dazzling sunlight. She covered her eyes and the memories poured into her mind again. She remembered that before she woke up, she should have been on a mission, waiting to die on that sinful island. Logically speaking, after death, she should return to the stars. But she found that she did not return to the starry sky, but instead came to this strange place. Once she discovered this fact, Lily quickly became vigilant, and she first took a look around. She appeared in a meadow, with a jungle not far away and a large, seemingly endless, tranquil lake in front of her. Seeing such a scene, Lily's first thought was that she might be there for some reason. Instead of entering the starry sky, she entered the mission again. She closed her eyes and tried to receive the plot and the memory of the original owner, but after waiting for a long time, no memories or plot appeared. Lily frowned all of a sudden. Could it be that for some reason this time, there were some errors in the plot and memory? She feels that the most troublesome thing is the situation. There are no memories and plots, which means that she needs to explore everything by herself. This made her task somewhat difficult. She found a situation. The clothes she was wearing looked very familiar. They were the ones she usually wore when she returned to the stars. Her original clothes were torn by Li Yangzi before, but I don't know how he did it later and gave her a new set of clothes. And she also found that her body seemed to fit particularly well this time. Generally she enters the world of tasks. There is a certain adaptation process. Even if her mental power increases and she can quickly control the original owner's body, no matter what, she will still feel a little uncomfortable when she first wakes up. But now she didn't feel any discomfort at all, as if this was her original body, as if she had just woken up from a good sleep. Lily had never felt so relaxed and at ease for a long time. She just wanted to get up, but soon realized something was wrong. There seemed to be a change in the atmosphere not far away. She turned her head and looked over, and saw two figures flying quickly in the distance. She wanted to hide, but here there was nothing but grass and woods, and these two people could fly in the air. At first glance, it was obvious that she was no ordinary person. Her speed made it impossible to dodge. On the contrary, it might anger them, so she hesitated for a moment and still sat where she was. After the two figures landed, they stared at her coldly. They were two men in their 30s. They were wearing green robes and both had beards. One of them stepped forward. "This is the territory of the Li family. How did you break in?" The two stared at Lily warily. At this time, Lily did not have the slightest aura of the great demon on her body, and she seemed to have no cultivation level. She was just an ordinary person, but this was the territory of the Dragon Clan, the Great Demon Dragon Clan. It is not the center of the clan, but there are layers of guards guarding the territory. But today, the two of them inexplicably felt that there was a new strange atmosphere in the territory. They originally thought that some famous demon from the clan had barged into the Li family's territory. In the middle, the two people were shocked and wanted to rush over to ask the big demon away, but they didn't expect to see a lowly girl with no demonic power at all, who looked like just an ordinary mortal sitting on the grass. Superior. Although the two of them could not feel the slightest bit of Lily's spiritual and demonic power, thinking that she could escape the layers of guards and appear here, they still looked like they were facing a formidable enemy. "How did you break in?" After one of them spoke, the other person couldn't help but snorted coldly when he saw Lily was silent. With murderous intent in his eyes, he took a step forward and stared at Lily gloomily. Alarm bells blared in Lily's mind. This person didn't seem to be just scaring her, but he actually had murderous intentions. He was likely to take action if he had any disagreement. These two people had just flown in from the sky. She guessed that there might be someone here. In the world of cultivating immortals, most of the cultivators do whatever they want. Killing a lot of people is not a big deal. Seeing that there was a hint of impatience in the eyes of the two people, Lily did not say that she didn't know how she got here. Judging from their words, this place belongs to the territory of a certain force and should be guarded by someone. If she says that she doesn't know how to get in, it will definitely anger the two of them and they may take her back to use some method. Find out why she's here. The method used by cultivators to make people tell the truth is not very friendly. It is very likely that they will use the method of soul searching, which is simple and convenient, but for the person being searched, it will be extremely painful. She doesn't have any strength now. In fact, Lily has just discovered that she seems to have turned into the body of an ordinary person without any spiritual power in her body. She is no match for these two people, so naturally she does not dare to fight against them. So when the second person spoke, with an obviously impatient look on his face, Lily bit the bullet and said, "Two adults, please forgive me. I am a servant of the Lee family. I accidentally entered this place by mistake." She lowered her head and knelt on the ground obediently, acting cautiously to please. From what these two people said was the territory of the Lee family, Lily guessed that the so-called Lee family must be very powerful. Generally, in the world of cultivating immortals, such a powerful cultivating family would only recruit disciples with spiritual roots. In addition, most of them would use mortals without spiritual roots as household servants to do some chores. When Lily just woke up, she had already discovered that there was no spiritual power in her body. She could feel it herself, and the two immortal cultivators in front of her could also very likely see that without spiritual power, they were unlikely to be disciples. In addition, if it is a big family, Lily's possibility of pretending to be a disciple is very likely to be exposed, but it is different if he is pretending to be a servant. Servants are the lowest existences in the world of immortality, and the owners of many aristocratic families may not dare to say that they remember more than 2 out of 10 servants. She said she was a slave and the safest one. As expected, the originally wary looks of the two men suddenly changed after hearing Lily claim to be Lee's servant. They became indifferent and indifferent. The murderous intention in their hearts receded like a tide. Although the servants, their lives were despicable, but the two of them couldn't bring themselves to kill such a despicable thing. Higher level slaves may also have demonic or spiritual power, but the woman in front of her has no spiritual power at all. It can be seen that she must be the most humble type. It is indeed possible that she does not understand the rules and has taken the wrong path. Thinking of this, the two of them showed contempt in their eyes. "Don't wander into Shuiyu Lake. This is not a place for people like you. The next time you find me, I will kill you without mercy." The two of them finished speaking coldly, and without even the urge to stay and take a look at Lily, they turned around and took off in the air. Lily was left alone, and she had just escaped from death, which caused cold sweat to break out on her back. If he had just died in this place for no apparent reason, without even remembering anything about the plot, it would have been an unjust death. As soon as the two people left, Lily sat there for a while, fearing that someone would come again, so she stood up and looked around. In front of Lily is an endless lake, and behind her is a large dense forest. Judging from the direction the two people flew from just now, the so-called Lee family's base camp should not be in the direction of the woods. She didn't have any spiritual power in her body, so she couldn't fly like these people, so she could only walk forward along the lake. Even if Lily has no spiritual power at this time, she can still feel that the area around the lake is full of spiritual power and is a good place for cultivating immortality. If she practices near here, her cultivation speed will probably increase several times. She secretly remembered this place and walked slowly along the lake. Fortunately, she was very lucky. After walking for 2 hours, she could already see the majestic group of houses in front of her. The house where Lee's family lives is built against the mountain. Although many people in the world of immortality like to dig caves, if you are from a big family, you can enjoy luxury. Lily climbed all the way up, pretending to be a shrunken slave, and without attracting anyone's attention all the way, she entered the power of the Lee family. What made her somewhat relieved was that no one here was curious about the sudden appearance of a stranger. After learning that she was a servant, a gloomy-looking middle-aged man quickly arranged for her to be a low-level maid and live in a room with a group of low-level maids. There are 2 updates today. Although the monthly ticket price did not reach 200 yesterday, I have received everyone's thoughts, so I will update it tomorrow. Allow me to save the manuscript for a day. In addition, the reason for the late updates in the past 2 days is not because I asked for votes, picked up my pants and ran away. It's really because of my disabled hand that I am too slow to type. Didn't Queen Lan always write 9,000 words in the past few days? So my archives are dry. Then I locked 8,000 words into the dark room every night before going to bed. I didn't come out of the dark room until 11 o'clock today. I was locked in a dark room for a whole day without using QQ or browsing the web. My days are like years. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1308. Lily had just arrived, and she was temporarily doing cleaning work. On her first day here, after cleaning a yard, she went to have a meal with a group of low-level maids, and then returned to her temporary residence. She was the lowest maid, so she was not qualified to live alone. Instead, she was in a spacious room with a wide and long stone bed in front of her. Many people lay down on it after eating. Bed. Arrived for the first time today, Lily picked an empty seat and climbed up. A woman next to her moved to the side as if she was disgusted. The woman sleeping outside turned off the light. The woman sleeping next to Lily turned over and suddenly said, "Sister Gizzy, I heard that our family is sending a new master over, right?" Having just entered this world, Lily had a disdain for everything here. After she first returned to Lee's territory today, she was assigned to clean a courtyard by a middle-aged man. She was new here, and no one even talked to her today, let alone inquire about the news here. Lily heard someone speaking and mentioned certain situations. Although her eyes were still closed, she was attentive. They eavesdropped, trying to get some useful information. This is the territory of the Lee family, and the so-called Lee family should be a big family in the world of immortality. But when Lily heard the words main family and the words new master, her mind suddenly became vivid. Come. In other words, there should be an owner here, and since there is a main family and the word pi is used, it proves that this place is most likely just a branch of the Lee family. At present, it should be owned by the Lee family. A member of the team temporarily becomes the owner and manages this place. The main family should be the center of Lee's power. The mention of new master proves that it is very likely that a new Lee clan member will appear here. What does it have to do with us? A woman's cold voice rang out, and the girl sleeping next to Lily trembled when she heard this. Once someone speaks first. Others plucked up the courage to speak. Sister Gizzy, you are the one who has stayed here the longest. Recently, people in other courtyards have been saying that my family is sending someone over. What kind of master will they send? The speaker was a girl with a clear voice. As soon as she finished speaking, the woman known as Sister Gazi was silent for a while. A slave's life is like a piece of grass. I live a long life because I am the cowardest. As soon as she said this, everyone fell silent. Lily waited for a while, but no one spoke again, and she did not get any useful information. After a while, everyone seemed to be frightened, and no one spoke again. At first the atmosphere in the room was tense, but gradually the girls all fell asleep in silence, and after a while the sounds of breathing began to stop one after another. These people were asleep, but Lily couldn't sleep. Originally, she was still dreaming about finding an opportunity to sneak to the Shuiyu lake she discovered today to practice, but after entering here, she discovered that it was heavily guarded. It was not easy to get in and out of the main power center of the Li family. There was no way for her to enter this area at will and practice physical skills by Shuiyu lake. I don't know what happened to this mission. She couldn't receive the plot or memories. Fortunately, Lily has a calm personality, and she has entered the mission world of cultivating immortals. This means that she will have a lot of time, as long as she lives. Practice slowly, it is always possible to touch the clues of the mission. It's just this time's environment, coupled with the family surnamed Li, it couldn't help but remind her of Li Yangzi. He once told himself he would send himself to the world where he was originally. Unfortunately, he was not encountered in the last mission world, and Lily didn't know what method he would use to send himself to his original world. With something on her mind, Lily couldn't sleep that night. The girls around have already fallen asleep. They are like ants in the world of immortality. There are many things to do every day. The people who can live here are the lowest beings, doing the dirtiest and stupidest jobs. If they don't get a good rest at night, they won't have the energy to do things during the day, which will make them angry. Steward, they might even die. So these people were sleeping soundly. Lily got up quietly at night, and these girls were still sleeping. Although they couldn't go to Shuiyu Lake, she could practice in this place. Everyone is asleep at this time, and this is the residential area for the lowest servants. No one will come here. From what Sister Gazi said before, we can know that low-level servants are the most dangerous. In such a world where she could lose her life at any time, she had to practice hard so that when one day she had the power to protect herself, she would not let anyone prey on her. She quietly pushed the door open, and it was quiet outside. There was a whole row of places where such low-class servants lived. Although Lily guessed that this place might not be the main center of power of the Li family, this area was not. It was small and had many slaves. From where this row of low-class servants lived, one could see that the end of the house was invisible in the night. She picked a place with heavy shadows and began to practice star training, but this time she quickly discovered that something was wrong. Lily just made an action and found that her body fit her perfectly. Generally speaking, when she enters the mission world and uses other people's bodies to practice physical skills, it will take some time for her to adapt. In other words, when she first started practicing physical skills, the effect would not be very good because she was in the adaptation period. But this time she found that her body could do whatever she wanted, and she could complete one movement easily, which surprised her a little. Yes, after completing an action, in addition to attracting the spiritual power from outside, it seems that something inside the body has been resonated and is ready to move. She was startled and stopped. Logically speaking, the little spiritual power she had just introduced into her body should have dissipated without a trace as soon as she stopped moving. However, this spiritual power did not disperse. It was as if some energy was sealed in the body. When this spiritual power entered the body, it resonated with this energy. It was as if this energy suddenly began to riot. A large amount of spiritual power it started to rush around in her body. Her body had not reached the point where it could accept such a large amount of spiritual power. She gritted her teeth, and the spiritual power in her body was rushing around. This energy was so powerful that she could not control it, and Lily was all muscled. Her pulse was extremely painful, her expression changed, her legs softened and she sat down on the ground, and her body began to tremble. Fortunately, after getting used to the pain, Lily felt the familiarity of this energy. This feeling was the same as the feeling in the starry sky. She closed her eyes and endured the pain. After a long time, the spiritual power slowed down. Slowly calming down, being restrained into her body and quieting down again, Lily seemed to have almost died. She was covered in cold sweat and her clothes were soaked. She opened her mouth wide and gasped, and her eyes suddenly widened. This energy was like the power in the starry sky. She was wearing the clothes she originally wore when she was in the starry sky. This body seemed to be her own. She did not have the same feeling of entering someone else's body in the past. This is the world of cultivating immortals, and the owner here is named Li. She remembered that Li Yangzi once said that he would send her back to his original world. At this time, there was nothing Lily didn't understand. She probably didn't know what happened. In the last mission world, after the island exploded, she was somehow sent here by Li Yangzi. He once said that he would send her here, but Lily always thought that when he sent her into her original world, he might meet her. She thought he would have something to say to her, but she never thought that things would turn out differently. Such suddenness. Lily sat back on the ground, her heart suddenly heavy as she thought of being separated from him before she even had a chance to see him. She entered the original world of Li Yangzi, and he used all his strength to send her here. He said at that time that he would pay the price for sending himself here, and he would disappear. The circles under her eyes began to feel unbearably sour for some reason, and the warm liquid enveloped her eyes. Lily seemed to have something stuck in her throat, and her hands tightly hugged her knees. She was like an abandoned and homeless cub. Li Yangzi had been by her side all the way. She knew that there would always be someone to accompany her after completing the mission, so she had never felt like this before. Lily suddenly felt empty in her heart when she suddenly discovered that the person she thought would always be by her side, the person who once made her feel a little overwhelmed, might never see her again. Li Yangzi has always been determined to win her, and she is not an enthusiastic person. In fact, the more forceful others are to her, the more she will feel withdrawn. Although Li Yangzi has already admitted in her heart that he should be her other half, Lily never thought about how she felt in her heart. She does like Li Yangzi, but this kind of love is not serious enough to be unforgettable. She just recognized Li Yangzi in her heart and did not resist avoiding him. However, her personality was too cold, so she was not very enthusiastic about him, and she didn't like him as much as he liked herself. She always thought that she and Li Yangzi would go on like this for a long time. She never thought that such a powerful man might disappear one day. Li Yangzi once told her that he was trapped by Yun Munan and could not escape from the mission world he created. If the reincarnation continues in the long run, one day he might be like Yun Munan thought, when he lost his memory, will be controlled by Yun Munan. According to his character, he would rather be broken than destroyed, and he would never shrink back out of fear, so he wanted to send Lily to his original place. Second update. Asking for a monthly ticket. Please give me some encouragement, I will work harder tomorrow to update again. Asking for a monthly ticket. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1309. What Li Yangzi said at the beginning was that if Lily could make him fall in love with her at the beginning, there might be a way to solve his later dilemma of being entangled by Yun Munan. Using the unsealed Li Yangzi to communicate with him in the future through some secret method might solve his problem. At that time, Lily only listened to this method as a solution and did not think that he might actually do this. After all, he himself said that if this method succeeds, then everything will be happy, but if it does not succeed, then he will disappear, which means that he will use himself to send Lily back to the place where he first lived when he was young. Place, in the future he actually no longer exists in a certain sense. What he said at that time was that even if Lily failed, he would not have fallen in love with Lily originally, but even if he disappeared, Lily would still be there, and she would no longer be living in the illusory world he created. But truly exists in a world, that is to say, he resurrected himself and no longer needs to rely on him to survive. He used his way to make Lily free, and she no longer has to worry about dying if the mission fails. Even if Li Yangzi no longer exists, she will still live well. When this thought came to her mind, what Lily felt was not relief, but indescribable heaviness. He sent himself to his youth at the expense of himself. In fact, in some aspects, he no longer exists in the future. He lied to himself. He has gone back to the past. How can he be in the future? Will it appear again? He no longer exists. When this idea came to her mind, Lily closed her eyes tightly, but her eyelids couldn't hold back the tears that flowed out. She thought that everyone who met her on the mission would always be separated. But she never thought that Li Yangzi would one day be separated like the people and things in those missions. If she had known that this day would exist, she should not have avoided him at all at that time. This man who was once so domineering and powerful finally expressed his love in a way that was completely different from his character. Although I didn't say it out loud, my heart felt heavier than if I said it out loud. He didn't even give Lily a chance to say goodbye, so Lily felt so heartbroken when she thought that she might never have the chance to see him again. Originally, she was not a person who ran away from trouble. But at this time, she would rather not know so much, and she probably wouldn't feel so uncomfortable. It's a pity that she asked Li Yangzi not to lie to her at the beginning. He made everything so clear. Now Lily feels uncomfortable but can't find a reason to blame him. She sat in silence for a long time. The spiritual energy in her body had just exploded. She didn't know how much time had passed. At this time, she barely calmed down and wiped her face. Now she doesn't dare to practice anymore, otherwise once the spiritual power enters her body, it will cause a lot of trouble. Li Yangzi most likely sealed certain powers into her body, and he probably thought that she might be in danger when she came here. These powers should be what he wanted to keep himself safe. When Lily thought of this, her nose felt a little sore again, and after a while she calmed down. No matter what, even if she has the worst plan in her mind now, Li Yangzi may have really disappeared, but he once said that as long as he fell in love with her as a teenager, he would always reappear in another way. Now that he said so, although the hope was slim, Lily still decided to try hard. So she decided to stay here for a while until she could find a way to tap into the huge strength in her body, even if she couldn't use them. But at least we have to find a way to seal off the energy in the body. Don't let the energy in your body start to riot once you practice these practices. As long as this matter is resolved, she practices for a period of time, and finds out whether the so-called Li family is Li Yangzi's family. She will go find Li Yangzi. If there is really no solution in the end, he will not appear again, so there will always be a time when he will be sealed again. The past self and him could get together because of the mission. At worst, she could just wait until he regained consciousness and meet him again in the same way. She didn't have much else, but she had a lot of patience, and she could always get him back one day. After thinking about this, Lily wiped her face, stood up, and quietly slipped back into the room. After realizing that the training was useless this time, Lily fell asleep quickly. She was awakened by the movements of a group of girls in the room getting up. It was still dark outside, but for a group of maids, it was already getting late. When everyone got up and washed up, Lily saw her original face reflected in the water in the basin. In fact, she had somewhat forgotten what she looked like. Looking at that face, which looked familiar yet unfamiliar, she was stunned for a while until someone pulled her out. "Why are you so dazed? Lily just woke up and quickly finished washing her face. Everyone packed up and went to work. After everyone washed up, they waited for the supervisor to assign tasks. While the supervisor's aunt didn't come, a group of girls chatted. Lily had a cold temperament and didn't like to take the initiative to chat with these little girls, but among the group of maids, the one who was originally sleeping was the girl next to her looked at her several times. Perhaps because the two slept next to each other, the girl was wary of Lily at first, but when the supervisor came, the two happened to be assigned to clean Yingxiangji together, so the girl tentatively looked at Lily several times. Eyes, finally couldn't hold it back. I'm Xiang Yuan, what's your name? I think you seem to be new here. As soon as she opened her mouth, she couldn't help but asked, how old are you? You look younger than me. Don't you love me too much? What are you talking about? You and Sister Gazi seem to have similar personalities, but you seem to be harder to get close to than her. Lily turned to look at the girl. She was quite cute, staring at him with a pair of round and big eyes. Lily smiled slightly and said, my name is Lily. At this point, Lily's heart suddenly moved. She didn't know anything about this place. She only knew that this was the territory of the Li family and one of the forces controlled by the Li family. However, she didn't know whether Li Yangzi belonged to the Li family. The girl in front of her had a lively temperament and she didn't move. A sensual opening. I know you asked Sister Gazi something last night. Hearing this, Xianjia Yuan's face perked up, and she couldn't help but take a few steps closer to her, almost touching Lily. Then she glanced around and whispered excitedly, that's right, you can't do it outside. Don't say it, you will die. It is said that we will have a new owner here soon. I heard what Lu Ji said. Lily wasn't very interested in who Xiang Yuan said about Lu Ji, but when she heard Xiang Yuan mention the new owner, she pursed her lips, followed Xiang Yuan's example, and asked in a low voice, why? A new master? After hearing this, Xiang Yuan glanced at her in surprise. You don't know? Lily shook her head. Xiang Yuan glanced around again, then pulled Lily and acted old-fashioned. Why don't you even know about this? She was a little proud, licked her lips, and said with some fear and excitement, it has always been the rule of the Li family to send the master to guard the Shuiyu Lake area, and now the old master has been recalled. This clan will naturally send a new master to guard it. After she finished speaking, seeing Lily's lack of reaction, she couldn't help but be surprised. You don't even know this, do you? Lily frowned and said nothing. Xianjia Yuan's eyes widened and her lips opened slightly. You don't even know this? Why did you come to the Li family as a servant? Do you also want to stay in the Li family for a while so that you can hook up with a steward with demonic powers? Of course not. Lily shook her head. When Xiang Yuan heard this, she didn't dare to say anything. Why? It would be such a glorious thing to have a steward with demonic powers as your lover. She was a little confused. He looked Lily up and down several times before curling his lips. We are just the lowest servants. We don't have any spiritual power or demonic power. If we don't have a backer, even if we are beaten to death, our name will not be recorded in this world. The strong are respected. Servants like Xiang Yuan are the most humble group of people. Not to mention that they are just the property of the Li family here. The master can do whatever he wants with them. Even if he is a low-level steward, he wants to kill them. You can only admit that you are unlucky. It is precisely because of this situation that many maids want to seek strong backers to save their lives. At this time, Lily actually said that she didn't want to find a supporter or a lover. Xiang Yuan immediately regarded her as an alien and didn't even want to talk to her anymore. The two of them calmed down and came to Yingxiang residence. This should be the place where Mr. Li greets guests, but there are usually few guests here. However, no matter whether there are guests or not, it always needs to be cleaned. Judging from the layout of Yingxiang residence, Mr. Li is good at enjoying himself. In addition to the alchemy room and practice room, which are all complete and luxurious, There is also a pool behind the house with a spring above it, and hot springs flowing out of the spring. This place should be built on a spiritual vein, because this place is rich in spiritual energy. Even when Lily is standing by the pool, she can feel the spiritual energy rushing towards her face. It is not any lower than the spiritual energy of Shuiyu Lake that she has seen before. She turned her head and glanced at Xiang Yuan beside her. She didn't seem to feel the spiritual power of this place, but she was amazed by the luxurious hot spring pool. The place is luxuriously and comfortably renovated, surrounded by spiritual grasses, and surrounded by smoke. There is a resting place not far away, with thin gauze laid down, and the soft couches and gorgeous decorations inside can be vaguely seen. The bottom of this spring has not been cleaned for a long time. Today, one of you has to clean the edge of the spring, and the other has to clean up the bottom of the pool. To be continued. P.S. Please vote for me. I'm exhausted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1310. The person who led Lily and the others was a woman in her 30s, with a cold face. I have temporarily blocked the spring above. No more spring water will flow down. It's best to finish it before tomorrow. There are dedicated people taking care of the courtyard outside, but this hot spring pool is not small. Let alone two, I'm afraid even if there are two more, I won't be able to finish it in a day. In particular, both Xiang Yuan and Lily are mortals and have no spiritual power. It is inevitable that they will eat, drink, and defecate. It is not an easy task to clean the pool. Xiang Yuan heard this. Then, his face changed slightly. However, for the higher-up supervisors, Xiang Yuan and the two had a low status, and they did not dare to refute at all. Xiang Yuan glanced at Lily and remembered that the woman had just said that only one of them would clean the bottom of the spring. One person had to take care of the surrounding environment and the resting place not far away. She took the handkerchief and a bucket, without even looking at Lily. I'll clean it over there. The status of a slave is too low. If the bottom of the spring cannot be cleaned in one day, and the superior supervisor becomes angry, he will not care whether the subordinate slave has been wronged. If he loses his life for no reason at that time, it will be a real injustice. Xiang Yuan and Lily had just met, but after just a few words, they were not even friends. Xiang Yuan did not dare to risk his life. She had chosen to clean the top, so Lily naturally had to clean the bottom of the spring below. The woman glanced at Xiang Yuan with a sneer, and then saw that Lily accepted the fact calmly without any sign of begging, so her face looked a little better. It needs to be cleaned up. Maybe there will be guests here in a while. After saying this, the woman took another serious look at Lily. Seeing that she complied, carried the bucket and walked towards the bottom of the pool, he nodded and stopped staying here. Turned around and went out. The pool was the size of some modern medium-sized swimming pools, but it was much deeper than the swimming pool. The pool was made of unknown jade and had probably not been cleaned for some time. The bottom of the pool already felt a little slippery. Three sides of the pool are inclined downwards like a boat, and the other side is a curved staircase. Lily is going to climb up the three inclined pool walls first. She was not tall enough, so she asked someone to borrow a long pole and tied the handkerchief to it, making it into a modern mop style. She tied the cloth next to it, and the fragrant circle on it had already begun to wipe the ground with a broom. She didn't know that she just felt a little guilty for leaving the difficult errand to Lily. This girl was born with a bad temper. As soon as the middle-aged woman left, she saw Lily's actions and couldn't help but said, "What kind of guest do you think is coming here? It's so grand." Lily herself had just arrived here, and she hadn't yet figured out the situation of the Lee family, let alone any guests here. She didn't know and didn't care. As soon as Xiang Yuan finished speaking, she shook her head to express her ignorance, and Xiang Yuan curled her lips. "The guests who can stay here must be of the same level as the owner," she said, throwing away the broom in her hand. "I don't know if they are male or female, and what kind of cultivation they are. Can you keep the peace here?" Xiang Yuan sat down on the ground and didn't say anything while looking at Lily. "I just tied up a weird-shaped handkerchief to wipe the wall of the pool." She rubbed it hard a few times, and the area she rubbed became smooth and clean. He just spoke for a long time, but she didn't reply a word, and she couldn't help but feel a little angry. But except Lily, no one spoke to her. Therefore, although Lily ignored her, her character could not calm down at all, so even if no one responded, she muttered to herself after a while. "This current master is so incompetent that the surrounding Yun and Feng families are extremely arrogant. Fortunately, a new master has finally arrived. The Li family will definitely be more powerful in the future. It would be great if the new master is a male cultivator. If the strength is higher than the current master, he must be very charming." As she spoke, her face blushed slightly. Lily was wiping the wall of the pool while listening to her talking to herself. He had already wiped a large area, but Xiang Yuan was still sitting on the edge of the pool, dangling her little feet, with a look of admiration on her face. From Xian Jiayuan's words, Lily probably knew that there were probably Yun and Feng surnames around the Li family's territory. They should be in similar situations to the Li family. They were powerful in the local area and sent people to garrison, but Li, the guarding clan members of the Li clan, are too weak, so they are vaguely suspected of being controlled by the Yun and Feng families. After learning about this situation, the Li clan should send new people here again. It's just that Lily doesn't care much about the distribution of these forces. The most important thing for her at the moment is how to solve the problem of not being able to practice physical skills. Once she solves this problem, she will be ready to go find Li Yangzi. Xiang Yuan was still mumbling. Lily took a few breaths and wiped the pool for a long time. Her arms were so sore that she put down the homemade mop, took a few breaths, and reminded Xiang Yuan. Said, "It's better to do things earlier." "What do you know?" Xiang Yuan was still guessing what the new master was like. When Lily reminded her to do things, she couldn't help but rolled her eyes, with a look of disdain in her eyes like a country bumpkin. This is the Li family's sphere of influence. The Li family is a descendant of the true dragon, a lineage of great demons with dragon power inheritance, and has amazing talents. Spiritual stones are produced here. If the Li family sends people to guard it, they should send people from their own family. After she finished speaking, she stretched out her hands to hold her face, with a shy look of a little girl on her face. "If you are a man of your own clan, the higher your cultivation level, the more charming you will be." In a way, the Li family is a descendant of a real dragon, so for the people here, the more advanced they are, the more fatal attraction they have for women. If I also have spiritual power, even if I am not a servant, concubine, just a spring breeze is enough. Xiang Yuan is not a monk, but the lowest servant. She does not have such a strong concept of chastity. The Li family even specially raised a group of enchanting beauties, who were chosen to have natural cauldron bodies. Teach him the exercises and make him specially serve Li's distinguished guests. Such beauties have a certain amount of spiritual power, which can be used as a cauldron to be replenished. They have servants to serve them, and their food, accommodation, and training are all provided by the Li family. They are really the envy of many low-level servants. An existence like Xiang Yuan is too humble. She doesn't even have to worry about losing her life due to being taken advantage of by the superiors. If she can really cross the line with the Li family, it will be a great honor for her. If she can hold on, let alone she will be supplemented, which may be beneficial to her. But she also knew that this was simply impossible. Li has the blood of a true dragon, and the nature of a dragon is inherently lustful. The more powerful a person is, the more powerful he is in sex than the average demon. She is just an ordinary mortal and cannot bear it. Therefore, she was just thinking about it, but Lily was new here, and many situations were unclear. Xiang Yuan deliberately spoke half of the words, but when she saw that Lily didn't seem to listen to her at all, she couldn't help but feel confused. It's a little embarrassing and a little boring. At this moment, when Lily heard Xiang Yuan say that the Li family was a descendant of a true dragon and had the blood of the Qinglong, she knew that this Li family might really be Li Yangzi's own clan. They both have the same surname of Li. The most important thing is that although Li Yangzi did not mention his race, he had imprinted the royal true dragon spirit on Lily. At this time, Xiang Yuan mentioned that Li was a descendant of a true dragon. He was already certain that Li Yangzi was born. Now that she probably knew that Li Yangzi was the Li family, the rest of the matter was easy to find out. He endured the excitement in her heart and started cleaning the hot spring pool again. Seeing that after talking for a long time, Lily only focused on scrubbing the pool without asking questions, Xiang Yuan rolled her eyes and cursed a few country bumpkins in her heart. She felt bored and stopped trying to talk to Lily. She picked up her broom and stood up, sweeping for a while. Maybe she felt bored. Although she had a lot of tasks, there were many places to clean around the pool. But compared with Lily, she seemed to have too few things to do, so she swept the floor for a while, wiped it here and there with the handkerchief, and after a while, she finally couldn't hold it back, threw the things and ran away. The previous woman had asked her to clean the place before tomorrow, but it was still early at this time. She figured that she might sneak out to play for a while and come back in time, as long as she could return before the previous woman came back to check. In this place, even if she works late, there is a pool as big as a lily to mop up, so maybe others won't notice that she hasn't finished her work. She was really curious about the guests that were about to welcome to Yingxiang residence. To be valued so highly by Mrs. Li, I guess the guest's strength was not low. In addition, the guest came at such a coincidental time, it was just the exchange of old and new masters. At that time, she went out for a walk and asked other people for information. She said that she might know some information that she failed to find out when she asked Sister Gazi last night. Thinking of this, Xiang Yuan threw away her things and ran out quietly. When she slipped away, she thought she was unnoticed, but as soon as she went out, Lily had already noticed that she had left. After all, the little girl's temperament was still unstable. Lily collected her emotions, stopped thinking about other things, and focused on start scrubbing the pool. Before Xiang Yuan came back, she had already scrubbed the surrounding area of the pool once, and dragged the bottom of the pool back and forth with a handkerchief several times. Lily worked carefully, and when she had wiped half of the stone steps, the bead curtain at the door moved. The child was lifted open, and the woman who had left before came back. When she found Lily with her head buried in wiping the stone steps, her face showed a look of satisfaction, but soon her face turned gloomy again. "Where's the other one?" "About 2 hours ago," Xiang Yuan threw away her handkerchief and ran away. She came back once, but she worked for less than 3/4 of an hour. Maybe she felt it was boring to just work and no one talked, so she threw away her things and ran away again. Haven't come back until now. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1311. Lily raised her head and wiped the sweat from her head. When she was thinking about making up an excuse to say that Xiang Yuan was out for something, the woman had already sneered twice and glanced at the pool, which had been wiped clean by Lily. When the time comes, just rinse it with water and scrub it again and it will be very clean. But the top was not cleaned at all. Instead, Xiang Yuan wiped it here and touched it twice. It looked messy. The woman sneered twice, turned around and went out without saying anything. Not long after, she heard her voice ordering people to find Xiang Yuan from outside. Lily naturally stopped talking and continued to work hard. About 1/4 of an hour later, Xiang Yuan came back. Her somewhat panicked and frightened begging for mercy came from outside. After a while, the woman led Xiang Yuan in. Xiang Yuan lowered her head and looked honest. The woman looked up and down. She glanced at her and said, "If things can't be done here after dark, Yingxiang residence never leaves useless people, so don't even think about living." After saying this, the woman snorted coldly and left again. The bead curtain was still shaking, but the woman's figure had disappeared. Xiang Yuan sat down on the ground and cried with her head buried. Lily had already wiped the steps and carried water to wash away. Xiang Yuan was still crying until her eyes were red. Seeing that the pool was suddenly clean after being washed by water, she sniffed. "You're done, it's time to help me." It was getting late now, and the woman had said that if she couldn't finish it before dark, she would die. Xiang Yuan originally thought that the woman's request would be before dawn. Although her place was large, there was not much work to do. She would play for a while during the day and be tired for a while at night before she could finish her work. She originally thought that Lily had more work than her and would definitely work slower than her. Unexpectedly, not long after she went out, Lily was almost done. In comparison, it was no wonder that when she was caught by the woman's face did not look good. Lily worked all day. She was very tired, and the pool had to be cleaned again. If she was done, Xiang Yuan asked her for help in a nice voice. It's not like Lily wouldn't agree. After all, the woman said that if Xiang Yuan didn't finish it, Xiang Yuan would die. But when she asked for help in such a matter-of-fact tone, Lily frowned. "You don't have much work to begin with. If you work hard now, even if you can't finish it before dark, it's not far behind." Xiang Yuan originally chose a relatively easy job. The reason why she hasn't finished it until now is purely because she herself had been delayed before, and it was not because of herself. Now it was clear that she was begging for help, and with such an attitude, Lily naturally refused flatly. "I have some work to do myself, so I'm afraid I won't be able to help you for the time being." She carried 2 buckets of water and washed them down, and then took a handkerchief to scrub them. The pool was quickly clean, but Xiang Yuan saw her refusal. He couldn't help but said angrily, "If you hadn't complained, how could I have been reprimanded? What does it have to do with me? I didn't say a word." After hearing Lily's words, Xiang Yuan couldn't help but raise her voice. "You didn't tell me, how could I be caught? It's a shame I still regarded you as a friend before." Lily was a little speechless. Someone outside heard the commotion inside, and a girl wearing a pink embroidered dress came in with a cold face. "Why are you making such a fuss? If you don't hurry up and get to work, you'll delay the cleaning, and your lives will be in danger." As soon as the girl scolded him, Xiang Yuan didn't dare to say anything anymore and hurriedly picked up the broom. Lily finished washing her own pool. Look at Xianjia Yuan's flustered face. Still helping her clean up the mess. When the woman came in, the 2 of them had just washed the quilts and pillows on the soft couch. The woman looked up and down. The water in the pool was clean and the top was almost tidied up. Her tense expression softened a little, and she glanced at the 2 girls standing together. Xiang Yuan seemed timid, maybe a little afraid of her, and when she saw her looking at him, he subconsciously hid behind Lily. Lily, on the other hand, stood upright, and the woman nodded. "Good job, what's your name?" Lily reported her name, and she smiled slightly. "Yingxiang residence is short of some manpower. It's good that you are smart. I will tell the manager of the West Courtyard that you will stay here at Yingxiang residence temporarily to do the cleaning work." As soon as these words were spoken, Xianjia Yuan's eyes widened with jealousy in his eyes. Although they are all slaves, the lowest slaves like her live in the West Courtyard, and they are sent to whichever courtyard there is errand. Working in a place like Yingxiangju is different. It's usually a quiet place and there isn't much work to do. Although they are all slaves, the slaves are divided into 3 grades. Like this morning when she went out to play, Yingxiangju, the slaves always look superior to others. If a guest comes, most of the guests who can stay in Yingxiang residence are not ordinary people, and it will be even more beautiful to wait here. Xianjiayuan's eyes were red with jealousy, but she didn't dare to speak. She felt in her heart that Lily was deliberately acting like this today to make the woman take a fancy to her instead of herself. On the other hand, she regretted that she shouldn't have been lazy and went out to play during the day. If she had known this, she and Lily worked hard together, and maybe both of them would be left behind at this time. Although she felt a little unwilling, Xiang Yuan was still sent away by the woman, and Lily stayed in Yingxiang to wait on her. There are usually no guests here, and there are not many servants to serve, but Yingxiang residence occupies a large area, so Lily finally has her own house to live alone. Although the place is not big, it is better than living with a group of girls yesterday. It's much better to sleep together. When she had nothing to do at night, she couldn't help but think of the energy that appeared for no reason in her body. Although she is to blame for what happened to Xiang Yuan today, the low status of a servant is also evident. The woman is not a big shot, but such a small steward has the right to decide the life and death of a person like herself. Although Lily's character is cautious enough, she also it's hard to prevent others from being moody sometimes, so you should still practice physical skills. If I have the strength, I will feel a little more at ease. After Lily washed up, she closed the door. There was an abundance of spiritual energy here. After she finished her first physical training, as soon as the spiritual energy poured into her body, the energy in her body seemed to be activated and began to swim around in her body again. She couldn't control this huge energy at all. Once it was aroused, she couldn't control it at all, and it pierced through her body. The muscles and veins in her body were destroyed and repaired by this spiritual power, and the pain caused made Lily tremble all over. She also felt that this was not all the energy in her body. The energy activated by her spiritual power was only 1%. She was sure that she could do nothing with this energy that was probably created by Li Yangzi for the time being. Lily did not dare to do anything anymore. Tried. After staying in Yingxiangju for a few days, He probably got some information. This place is called Shuiyu Lake and is rich in spiritual stones. It is one of the Li family's points of influence in this place. In this world, the Li family is a descendant of a true dragon. She has the blood of a true dragon and is full of demonic power. However, among the direct lineage of the Li family, the situation is mostly polarized. Either those with purer bloodline and higher strength will be fierce, domineering and indifferent in temperament. Because of this characteristic, the Li family has more geniuses in the inheritance, but it is also because of the many geniuses and strong strength that no one is convinced. So internal fighting is frequent. Or they are addicted to the advantages brought by their innate qualifications. Most of them enter the golden elixir stage early and indulge in enjoyment, and their lifelong cultivation ends here. It is precisely for these reasons that the Li family's strength has not increased due to blood. On the contrary, every few generations, when the power is at its peak, either a large number of talents are lost due to internal fighting, and the strength is weakened, or most of them are the talented and beautiful disciple was abandoned because he was addicted to power and status. For thousands of years, this tradition has formed a vicious cycle, repeating itself like a curse. Therefore, the Li family can only be regarded as a first-class family in this world, and the impact of the inheritance of talented bloodline is not beneficial to the family. But even so, the Li family is still one of the top families in the world of cultivation. In addition to the Li family, there are other families whose strength cannot be underestimated. Outside the sphere of influence of Shuiyu Lake, there are also the Yun and Feng families. Like the Li family, they are one of the families that inherit the blood of the great demon. The territory of these two families is also rich in spiritual stones, so these families have also sent their own members to guard this place. Although they are both from a large clan and most of their influence points are located next to each other, Their relationship with each other is not good and they are on guard against each other. In particular, the Li family's strength could never increase due to special reasons, and they were guarded by the two families. 300 years ago, the Li family's power point on Shuiyu Lake sent a member of the Li family to guard it. It is said that the master of the Li family's stronghold had already reached the level of strength when he came to this stronghold 300 years ago. At the early stage of Jindan, he was regarded as one of the more talented monks in his clan. Unfortunately, this master had a fierce and eccentric temperament. After coming to Shuiyu Lake, he was good at enjoying himself and neglected his cultivation. After hundreds of years, his cultivation has not improved even an inch. He was still in the early stage of Jindan, but he did not get along well with the Yun and Feng families, and even almost fought several times. The strength of the leaders of Yun and Feng's stronghold here has reached the middle stage of Jindan. However, once there is a fight between the two parties, it will not only be against each other, but also the family will be implicated. If it weren't for the fact that the Li family had the backing of the Li family, and the several major families didn't think of conflict with each other, after all, the major families were on guard against each other, fearing that they would take advantage of others if they had a nasty fight with someone. If it weren't for these, the worry is that he might have killed the person in charge of the Li family long ago. How can he allow a monk in the early stage of the golden elixir to show off in front of him? The families have restrained each other and have been patient for many years. Although members of the Yun, Feng, and other families have reported the situation to their own clan several times, they have mostly kept silent. To be continued.